Put a shark mouth on something, and I'm gonna like it. Aerocobras, Mustangs, Hueys, Thunder Chiefs, Warhawks. Hell, even U2s. Now, there's always a decal option for these markings, but, well, I have always had issues getting this kind of decal to behave, especially when it has to perfectly conform to compound curves, sharp edges, and rivet detail. So I just paint them. And I avoid setting solutions, deionized water, hair dryers, and other decal voodoo. Paint will always conform to curves. Let me show you how I do it. I started this here Eduard P-40 from the Pacific Dual Combo kit, and I have to say, the build went very smoothly. Actually, it was like I was speed building this thing. Everything fit. Everything worked. Honestly, I'd point out the issues if there were any, but there are none. This kit is a gem, especially the cockpit. It reminds me of the Tamiya Corsair and Zero cockpits in 32nd scale. There's that much detail in there right out of the box. The only thing I thought could use a little improvement was the pilot's seat, and that allowed me to try out my new Halot X1 3D printer. I found a nice P-40 seat file designed for a 32nd scale Warhawk, but this wasn't a problem. I just had to scale it down to 66.67% of the original size. Once that was done, I pressed print on the Halot X1, and seriously, it's just that easy. The printed seat turned out nice with little fuss and practically no cleanup. I'm very new to 3D printing, and this printer was great to learn on. If you're thinking of getting into 3D printing, this is a good one to get started with, and I'll have more about the printer later on in the video. Once the cockpit was complete and gently placed into the fuselage, the rest of the build went together like butter. I didn't even have to fix any of my own mistakes in this build. So let's get this thing painted. The kit instructions call for Mr. Color paints, but I used Tamiya acrylics instead. These are always available to me, and there are a lot of mixing references available online. All of the colors and mixes I used are listed in the video description. A primer of black was the first thing that got sprayed. Not only is this a good base to build up the camouflage, it also revealed a few teeny gaps that I missed on the top of the fuselage. My goal was to create a gently used and sun-kissed Warhawk with faded paint. I started with flat white to model the entire airplane. This was thinned about 1/3 paint to thinner, and I sprayed it in a purposeful, intricate, and deliberate pattern. Okay, it was just random tight paint squiggles within the panel lines. Normally, I'd do a few colors in this model stage, but since this is a Warhawk with two-tone camouflage, I kept things simple and limited the layers of paint. The bottom got its gray colors sprayed in a couple of thin coats to build up the color slowly and not obliterate the modeling. When it comes to this step, the idea is to show light paint distress, but to not make the surface look patchy. I usually go in with a mix 50-50 paint to thinner, and I work slowly. After the gray parts were masked off, it was time to paint the brown mix on the top of the model. And for some reason, this took a bit longer to do. Maybe my paint was thin too much, because even after a couple of coats, the brown just would not blend into the modeling at all. This ended up taking at least 4 coats, but eventually I got it to a level where I was happy. I used the painting diagram and the instructions to help me create tape masks for the hard edge camouflage. I say I got it mostly right. Maybe not 100% precise, but I give it a solid 92. Maybe 92.5. By this time, the modeling needed to be revived with some gray before laying down a couple coats of the green. The green went on much better than the brown, and with that, the main painting was complete. So, let's have some fun. There are at least 37 different ways to mask for a shark mouth. This time I'm going to use a silhouette cutter, and the masking material is Oramask 810, which is just flexible and sticky enough to use on painted surfaces. First, I make a scan of the decal and I save it. Now, some people can pop this right into their Cutter software, but I've found that my Cutter software can be a bit of a jerk when it comes to pictures or scans. It only likes simple, high contrast images, but this can be fixed very easy using a program like Paint 3D. Paint 3D has a number of handy tools to help clean up images. I use the eraser, the pencil, and the paint pour tools. I clean up the image using the eraser, and if I need to enclose areas, I draw in some lines. The paint pour function comes in very handy to simplify the shark mouth and give it as much contrast as possible. I just pour the digital paint to get simple contrasting colors where they're needed. And there we go. Nice and contrasty. Then I open the image in the Cutter software. And still, it is a bit finicky despite the simplicity of the image. Not to worry, there's a tool here that can help. I select the image and I hit the handy little tracing tool. The image changes color and the program shows where it thinks the cut lines on the image will be, but there are a couple of sliders that allow you to make adjustments. Then I click accept and I get my first set of paint masks. The thing is, I need a few more. I'm going to be painting and masking over a few colors: red, black, white, and one blank that has a very special use. So I make a few copies and I modify them slightly to ensure I have the right masks for all the colors of the mouth. Lastly, I draw in cut lines around each mask to make them easier to work with once they're cut. And when I'm happy, I click accept, and I should end up with these cut lines for the shark mouth. Now that we have the masks, it's time to paint. The easiest way to start the painting process is to place the shark mouth blank on the model and adjust it as necessary. That way you'll know exactly where the mouth will be, and it's far easier than starting with the outline. When I'm happy with the placement, then I place the outline mask around the blank. After I burnish it down as much as I can, the blank is removed. I like to work from the outside in because it's much easier to ensure the mask is sealed in. So I'm starting with NATO black. To prevent the paint from bleeding under the mask, I build up the color slowly and I'm careful not to spray into or under the edge of the mask. Once the black is down, I mask the outline to make sure it's fully sealed, and this gets everything ready for the red, which was toned down with a bit of Tamiya flesh color. Then I mask for the teeth, and in this case it's white toned down with a bit of gray. And then, well, I was feeling a little saucy, and I painted the stars as well as the script US Army on the underside. Of course, I went way overboard with masking this model, and I used most of a roll of tape, which is about the right amount because I always seem to absent-mindedly handle the model or accidentally shoot paint where I do not want it to go. But this does prevent having to respray, and removing the masking is like opening a gift on Christmas morning. And the shark mouth? Oh yeah, pretty as a picture. Once that was painted, there were just a few more steps needed, like giving it a gloss coat, sticking on some decals, adding some panel wash, cleaning off the excess panel wash, and then there are all those little bits that need to be painted, weathered, and installed on the Warhawk. And there you have it. The Warhawk is all done. Like I said, this kit went together beautifully. It is a really wonderful build experience and one of the nicest kits I've ever put together, but I'm in it for the shark mouth, and I think that turned out great. My first painted shark mouth was for my Airacobra, but I think this one went on even better. And yes, it might be a little more bother and a little more work than applying a decal, several liters of decal solution, and hoping for the best. Because no matter how much you love big decals, they might not love you back. With paint, you can't argue with the results. The shark mouth looks painted on because, well, it is. Besides, making your own masks is pretty easy. As for 3D printing model parts, I really enjoyed using this X1. I really like how the build plate works and how easy this printer is for someone new to 3D printing. Actually, I decided to really put this machine through its paces for a future build, and I have to tell you, I think I might be hooked now. If you want to get into 3D printing, or you're looking for an upgrade, and you want to save some money, here's a link for you. I also have this link in the video description. Thank you to Haylot for sponsoring this video. And thank you to everyone for your support. I love hearing back from you. So let me know what you think about the video in the comments. Do you like shark mouths? Have you tried to paint markings in the past? Is there such a thing as a well-behaved decal? As always, keep building and keep taking risks when you build. It's what makes this hobby so much fun. Bye for now.